Hi guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you um, briefly how to use the split toning panel here. Um, so in our last video we looked at HSL, color, and black and white. So I thought I would use the same image we used to demo those, and I'll show you what we can do with split toning. Split toning is pretty simple. Really, we're just choosing um, a color to use to create an overlay that affects just the highlights, and we are adding essentially another overlay of color to our shadows. This is even in Photoshop, this is a relatively easy thing to do. It's basically just, this would be one layer, this would be another, and then you'd play with the opacity of that layer um, to determine how intense it's going to be. So here it's even simpler, it's just sliders. So if we go to our hue slider here, let's start with the highlights. And if I hold down the Option, I believe on PC it would be Command or Alt. Hold down Option and click, and now we have a preview, basically a full strength preview, so that we can see what hue that's going to be. And right away you can see it's really intense. This essentially is how you could make your own Instagram filter. It's really pretty basic. Let's add kind of a warm overlay to the highlights. So I've chosen the hue right now. Saturation is at 0, so you're not seeing it in the image at all yet. Then if I click on the saturation slider and I move that around, we can turn it up all the way as we saw in our preview, or we can bring it back down. I think even up here it's a little strong. And you can watch the way it affects. This is pretty much a pure white tone in here, so we can kind of see what it's doing when we look in there. And now we can do the same for the shadows. So hold down Option and click again, and we can choose any of these for the shadows. This is how what I think are sort of cheap knockoff impersonations of analog processes like cyanotype, sepia tone, cross processing, some of those things that some of you may have heard of. You can buy presets and actions that usually look something like this, and they're usually pretty overdone. If you ever see the real thing that they're basing it on, it's usually a lot more subtle than what you see in those presets and actions that people sell. They make a lot of money from it, but when you see just how easy it is to create your own look like that, I don't think you'll ever want to spend money on those again. So now you can see we've added this sort of a blue to our shadows, which mostly is working in here on this guy's shorts. And we've got this sort of a warm golden brown kind of a color that we've added to our highlights. Now you can see in the middle here this balance slider. We've already dialed in how saturated we want each of these overlays, but now we can skew the balance from one side to the other, so we can make it lean more to the cool side of the tone that we put into our shadows, or we can have it lean more towards the warm side. So it's just one more way to kind of balance these things out, hence the name. So you can see this is a pretty strong look. The image already had pretty, let's go back, this is where we started. The colors were already really intense in camera, and then just with the little bit of retouching that we did in our previous video, it really didn't take very much to make what was already a bold image even just that little bit bolder and pop a little bit more. When we add this to it, now it's a really strong, pretty stylized look. So this is one thing that we can do with a color image. We could also, if we go back here, make this a black and white image, and now we have a toned black and white image. So again, for those of you with darkroom experience, you know that your print might start off neutral tone, but through the use of different toning chemicals you can get it to look warmer, you can tone it blue, you can split tone, which is where this name comes from, where you are using more than one toner. So now I think it's a lot easier to see what happens when we change the balance of this. So we get it here. I feel like it's actually pretty even, somewhere around there. Or we could take out one of these altogether. Now it's a really cold tone image. We can take out our blue tone, and now it's more of a warm sepia tone. Again, this is a much stronger and more kind of a caricature of the real thing. If you ever see a darkroom made sepia tone print, it's much more subtle than this. But this is kind of what we've come to think of as being sepia tone. So again, we can do this to a black and white image, turn it back to color, can use it as an overlay on a color image. But let's go back here. There are some circumstances where you could even use this for color correction. Let's say you've got you've been very careful with setting an accurate white balance, and you've been dealing with your colors as carefully as possible, but maybe you have some kind of a stubborn color cast because of let's say maybe one of your lights has a lamp that's giving you a significantly different color temperature. You might use something like this to try to correct that out. Let's go back to where we started. So this is where we started. We've got these nice warm, intense colors here. The green is working pretty well on the tennis balls here. Here it's definitely got a lot of warmer tones mixed in. And the sky, it's pretty blue. We darkened it a little bit also, but if we wanted to make that just a little bit more blue, let's see what would happen if we just add a tone to our shadows. We'll leave this alone, but let's see what happens. So let's go and click Option, click on our hue slider, and let's add, I want to make that blue sky a little bit bluer. Let's just see what happens. If this will help us get a slightly bluer sky. So this is about the color that I'd like. And now let's just add a little bit of saturation. And you can see it's affecting the sky a little bit. It starts to cool off their skin tone some too. And so it's, if you recall, it's an overlay on mostly the shadow tones, but it's kind of covering the whole image, so it's not maybe quite as targeted and local of an adjustment as if we do it here. But this would be one way if you wanted to try and boost a particular value. You could add it to the highlights or the shadows. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's see, let's try it here in highlights. I know for sure that's going to change the white in her skirt. It's going to make the gray of his shirt, it's going to cool that off a little bit, and it's going to change their skin tones a little bit, but let's just see what it does. Let's get that blue. So we know we definitely don't want it that strong. That would be a little too far. Let's get it a little bit more blue. Around there. And as you can see, it does, by the time it starts to affect the sky, it starts contaminating their skin tone. So that's really only in, let's say if this was a really dark, low-key image, we could maybe use this to do a little bit of color correction. But this one has, the most important information is right here in the midtones. So you're going to get overlap between the highlights and the shadows a little bit. And it's why I think using this, unless you want something really strong and stylized, this is one that can be easy to abuse. So you just kind of have to, be careful with how you use it. Think about why you're doing it and what effect you're trying to achieve. But this is, another way that you can add a certain look to an image. As I mentioned, you could use this in certain instances for color correction, but it's really not designed to be a color correction tool. It's more of a fun, creative type of a tool. So when you use it, be creative and have fun with it, and um, think about what it's going to add to your image, or whether it might distract from it. But I think it's pretty simple and straightforward what it does. So it's not really rocket science. Um, and that about wraps it up. If you've got any questions, email me or post them on the tech support forum. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video, where we're going to start getting into a little bit of how to merge images to stitch together panoramas and HDR images. So I'll see you then.